You are tuned into a Tuesday edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson. You can always follow my stuff on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. That's at JOHNYJ underscore 15. And you can catch us on wherever you listen to your podcast. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Just be sure to hit the follow button and subscribe. If you are a first-time listener and you want to know how this channel works, we bring you episodes Monday through Friday, 30-minute episodes, of course. We also have our 60-second YouTube shorts, which you can check out on our YouTube channel. And we now have the Royals Postcast, which is hosted by Chance Lebo. That comes to you live after each and every Royals game. He'll go for about 15 minutes. You can go to the comment page on StreamYard. It's always a lot of fun. I was able to fill in twice last week, but you can expect Chance full-time moving forward, and he always does a great job in breaking down what just occurred in the game. Before we get started, I want to tell you that today's sponsor is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off on your first year. Well, we had the off day yesterday. Now the Royals will begin a 3-game series with the Tampa Bay Rays, and then the Los Angeles Dodgers will be coming into town. So we'll have more of a breakdown on that series, specifically the Rays series, at the end of today's show. In the second part of today's show, we're going to be diving in a little bit to the article that Jeff Passan put out there of the top 50 trade candidates in all of baseball. I believe it was Jeff Passan and Kylie McDaniel that put it out there. There is a Royal on this list. There are a few outfielders that are seen as best fits to the Royals. So we'll dive into that in the second segment. But to kick off today's show, we are going to be diving into the American League wildcard race and why it should be a good segment to kick off with, because we will be talking about trade deadline stuff in the second segment. How many of these teams are legit? Where do the Royals stack up? And how many of these teams are going to completely fall off by, the end of July, maybe the beginning part of August? And this is really no surprise. We knew going into this season that the National League was going to be the superior league. It wasn't that way at the All-Star game because the American League found a way to win. I was down there in Arlington for that game, and it did catch me by surprise because the National League is so loaded with some of the game's best players, but the American League has Aaron Judge on that side. You look at guys like Yordan Alvarez in Houston. You got Tarek Skubal. In Tampa Bay, you got Junior Caminero, Toronto, Vladdy Jr. There are great players on the American League side, but we know on the National League side, it's a gauntlet, right? You got to be a 90-plus win team to even get your foot in the door, it feels like. We're on the American League side, you might be able to win your division with 88 to 89 wins. It doesn't mean you can't compete with the National League team, but we saw last year the Yankees, who dominated their way through the postseason, they got smoked by the Dodgers when it was all said and done. So where things stack up right now, you've got the Tigers leading the American League by 4 games as the number 1 seed. Actually, I believe it's 4.5 games, if I'm not mistaken. Then you've got Houston at 45 and 33. They're now tied with the Yankees, by the way. Didn't believe that would be possible with the way the Yankees were playing a few weeks back, but they're 3-7 over their last 10. So you've got the Yankees at 45 and 33, the Astros at 45 and 33, and the Tigers at 49 and 30. As for the wild card teams, the Rays, who will be in Kansas City tonight, tomorrow, and Thursday, they are 43 and 35. They're a game and a half up on the second place wild card team in the Toronto Blue Jays. They are 41 and 36. Seattle is the third wild card team at this point in time. They are 40 and 37. They hammered Minnesota last night, and they've got Cal Raleigh, who's pacing for 60-some home runs, which would just be absurd as a catcher. And then you've got Cleveland, who is 39 and 37. They begin a series with Toronto, I believe, tonight. Want to double check on that. They will have Toronto in Cleveland tonight. That's a first pitch of 5:40. Then you've got Boston at 500. They're a game and a half back of Seattle. The Royals are right there, 38 and 40, 2.5 games back. The Angels are also 38 and 40, so they're 2.5 back. Texas is 38 and 41. They're 3 games back. The Twins, who have just been in an absolute free fall, they got smoked by Seattle, as I said. They're 37 and 41, 3.5 back. And then you've got Baltimore, who is playing better baseball. They're not completely out of it, but they're still 6.5 games back of the final wild card spot. We'll see at the deadline if they're going to be, staying put or if they're going to be sellers. But this is more so about the middle of this bunch and why I've continued to say that if the Royals are hovering around this spot in the American League wildcard race, they're going to be buying. They're going to be trying to make a push in the second half to surpass some of these teams. And the only question they have to answer, and this has to be an internal question and an answer, is do you believe that you can be better than Boston, Cleveland, Seattle, the Angels, Texas, and Tampa Bay when it's all said and done? Those collection of teams. And it sounds like a lot, but the Royals had to do this last year as well. Did they believe that they were better than Minnesota? Did they believe they were better than Detroit? Did they believe they were better than Boston and Seattle? And in the end, they were. And they were able to buy a little bit in getting Lucas Ursig, getting Hunter Harvey, getting Paul DeYoung, adding some pieces to that team to help them make the final push. And where some of these teams are right now, there's a lot of, you know, average to below average teams, overachieving teams. And the Royals can't call themselves at this point in time one of those unlucky teams. I mean, they've got a negative 21 run differential. Their expected win loss is 36 and 42. So that's actually 2 games worse than they are right now. But here's some of the run differentials for the teams in the American League wildcard race. You've got Tampa, who's plus 70. They seem to be legit, and we're definitely going to get that on display this week. Toronto's got a negative 10 run differential. Their expected win-loss is 37 and 40, despite being 5 games over 500. Seattle, I still believe, is very legit because of the way their pitching staff is and the way their offense can hit on the road. It's tough to hit at Safeco. We'll definitely be seeing that here next week when the Royals travel up there to take on the Mariners. So they're plus 21 in run differential. The Guardians are minus 23 in run differential, despite being 2 games over 500. Boston's plus 11, but we know all about them trading Rafael Devers. So are they going to be in it when it's all said and done? The Royals have a negative 21 run differential, as I said. The Angels are negative 50, and they're the same record as the Royals. Their expected win-loss is 10 games under 500. They've also been, pretty average, actually, between their home and road splits. They're a game under 500 playing away from Anaheim and when playing in Anaheim. The Rangers have a plus 10 run differential, who the Royals just swept. And then you've got all teams that are negative in run differential. The Twins are negative 19. Baltimore's negative 79. The Athletics are negative 127. And the White Sox are negative 83. So who is really the legit team here? I will say the Rays are going to be a playoff team. Where I stand right now, and I'm trying not to have that recency bias involved, but they've got a lot of young talent there. And, I like the pairing of Junior Caminero and Yandy Diaz and Brandon Lau. And then you've got Chandler Simpson, who's that spark as well. There's a lot of underrated pieces. I didn't even bring up Jonathan Aranda, who I believe should be an all-star. Even if he's not starting at first base, he needs to be a reserve. That's how good he's been this year. Rotation-wise, it does need to get better. They got to get more out of Shane Baz. They got to get more out of Taj Bradley. But Drew Rasmussen, who the Royals will see in Game 2 of this series, I'll be out there for at Kauffman Stadium covering the game. He's been very good this year. But I believe that Tampa Bay will get one of those final 3 spots. I'm a pretty big believer in Seattle. I thought they were right there last year, and they were. If it wasn't for that collapse against the Royals, they would have had the head-to-head, and that's what kept them out of the postseason. There were also numerous games that they should have won that they didn't, and they could argue that that was a big reason why they didn't make the postseason. But to me, Tampa and Seattle feel like they're going to make it. So now, maybe we can dwindle it down a little bit more. You don't need to ask yourself, are the Royals better than Seattle or Tampa Bay? Because you feel that those teams might get in. And I'm not trying to just play it because the run differential. I believe Seattle has the pitching and some of that star power with Cal Raleigh and Julio Rodriguez. And Tampa Bay's got a nice collection of young talent that can get them over the finish line. Toronto, they're so hit and miss and so hot and cold that they're unpredictable. They feel a little bit like Boston last year to me, where they could get really hot and they could get really cold, and that speaks for the -10 run differential. Cleveland, I wonder how much of last year's regression or last year's team being as good as they are has factored into some of this regression, where they were able to win 90 plus games without a loaded lineup. There's damn good players for Cleveland. Don't get it twisted. But this feels more of what they're like, and what we all expected them to be compared to last year, where they ran away with that division when it was all said and done. Boston, they're without Rafael Devers. Are they going to be a 500 team, a few games under, a few games over? So now you can dwindle it down to, are the Royals better than Cleveland, Boston, the Angels, Texas, and Minnesota? Those are the teams you got to ask yourself the question of. And if the Royals are better than those teams, and if they can turn things around, all you'll have to do is be better than those teams. And maybe Seattle falls out of it. Maybe Toronto falls out of it, or Tampa Bay does. And now you got to ask yourself the question, are you better than those teams? And it should be a fun race. I really don't think there's going to be a ton of separation until September, if I'm being quite honest with you, because there are going to be teams like Minnesota right now that are falling out of it a little bit, and then they're going to get hot, and you're going to have to worry about them again. Seattle was a team that was leading the American League West, as they did last year, and then they plummeted, and the Astros were able to take a 4.5 to 5 game lead in that division. So it's very volatile like that. The Royals are one of those teams as well. They had the 17-4 stretch. They've also had 2 6-game losing streaks this season. So they absolutely are one of those teams that are unpredictable. And I'm sure those other teams are going, can we outlast the Royals? Can we keep them off our back? And can we catch up to them? It's all going to be decided here over the next few months, but that's where things stack up in the American League wildcard race. And those are some of the teams I believe in. And some of the teams I'm not going to really buy into. The Angels, I just am not going to do it. I feel that the injuries are going to catch up to them. Some of those guys are going to regress. Minnesota, injury bug always gets them. Texas, they don't have the offense. Neither do the Royals. But, I feel like the Rangers deal more with the struggle of getting more out of their top players than the Royals have. The Royals are still getting good numbers from Bobby Witt Jr., from Vinny Pasquantino, where the Rangers, they're struggling to get stuff from guys that they're paying a lot of money and counting on to be those run producers. So we'll see. Texas still has the firepower to get it done. Maybe I'm just reading into too much of what the Royals did in Arlington this previous week. Okay, we're going to take our first break of the show. When we come back, going to dive into this article done by Jeff Passan and Kylie McDaniel, the top 50 trade candidates and where the Royals are seen as best fits for certain players. That's next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson. And if you want to come check out our Royals channel, we bring you episodes Monday through Friday, 30-minute episodes, and our very own Chance Lebo brings you the Royals postcast, which comes to you live after each and every Royals game, so you can check that out tonight at the conclusion of the Royals and the Rays. Before we dive into those trade candidates, I want to tell you about a brand new sponsor here at Locked On Royals. It is Rugiet. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average, in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. Head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnMLB and use code LockedOnMLB to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnMLB and use promo code LockedOnMLB for 50% or 15% off. I don't want to get that twisted there. 15% off, not 50% off. So Kylie McDaniel and Jeff Passan did an article that came out earlier this morning, and I always love these articles and dive into them as we get closer to the trade deadline, more so when the Royals are buyers, and right now we may not be 100% sure if they're going to be buyers or sellers, but it's a list of the top trade candidates in Major League Baseball. And Seth Lugo is on this list, and in fact, he's one of the guys that is pretty high on this list. And so what Passan and McDaniel did is they listed a player, they listed the fits, and the likelihood that that player gets traded. So for Seth Lugo, they gave him a 40% chance of being dealt. Now you've got that information, and we also got the information from, I'm blanking on which article it was, but that the Royals are unlikely to deal any of their arms because they feel that's their best chance of getting into the postseason. So, barring a collapse in which they have to be obvious sellers, it's pretty likely that they're going to be hanging on to most of those guys. They might find a way to flip one of those pieces if there was a really great deal that could bring them in a young and controllable bat. But I would say that they are likely going to be holding on to Seth Lugo. And this article is not saying that they are going to trade Seth Lugo. It gives them a sub 50% chance of being dealt. But there's guys on this list like Alex Bregman, but they give him a 10% chance of being traded. They list the Chicago Cubs, Detroit Tigers, Mets, and Yankees as fits for Bregman. Jarren Duran, the first outfielder on the list, they give him a 25% chance of getting traded, and the Royals are listed here as a potential fit. They've got San Diego, Atlanta, Cleveland, Kansas City, San Francisco, and Philadelphia. You get down to Seth Lugo, they give him a 40% chance of being traded, and it says Lugo has posted mid-3 ERAs or lower for 5 seasons despite having below-average fastball velocity and good, not great strikeout rates. His ability to strand runners and limit hard contact comes in part due to his 9 different pitches. With Nathan Eovaldi-type contract awaiting Lugo in free agency, Kansas City could opt to move him, especially if Cole Reagan's injured shoulder doesn't improve. The best fits are seen as the Cubs, the Astros, the Blue Jays, San Diego, and the Dodgers. I also missed one name here, which we brought up before, at least on my Twitter page, Eugenio Suarez, who just won NL Player of the Week. He's got a 50% chance of being traded, and I believe that's perfect because the Diamondbacks are right around 500. Are they going to be sellers? Are they going to be buyers? So Suarez in a contract year. He's turning 34 before the trade deadline. They list the Tigers, Brewers, Cubs, Yankees, Royals, Mariners, and Giants as potential fits for the third baseman. And that would be interesting to me. If the Royals went out there, tried to get Eugenio Suarez, does he play third and then you move Michael Garcia to second? I would say doubtful because you're still playing Jonathan India every single day. So I would probably see Suarez as a DH because your DH has kind of been a variety of names over the last month and a half to 2 months. That's what I imagine is going to happen if the Royals go out there and get a bat that's not a great defender. That just becomes their everyday DH. And I know Matt Quatraro likes to move around some pieces, but Jack's playing fine in right field. Vinny's at first. Salvi's behind the plate. Garcia's at third. India's at second. Could have a left fielder. Could have a DH. But there's 2 holes in this lineup I believe the Royals need to address to boost this team's offensive production. So, Seth Lugo, I was about to say Josh Naylor. He is on this list. The Royals are not seen as a fit. But Seth Lugo is the only Royal on this list. So I can ease everybody's mind, at least the ones that want to buy and not sell. Seth Lugo is the only name here. However, he is listed as the number 6 trade candidate in this article. Ryan O'Hearn is on this list, an 85% chance of getting traded. The Royals are not seen as a fit. Marcell Ozuna is listed number 11 here, and he's got a 25% chance of being dealt. The Royals are listed as a fit. San Diego, Seattle, Detroit, Kansas City, San Francisco, Cleveland, and Boston. No pitcher or relief pitcher from what I read. I might have missed a name or two here, but none of the starters or relievers were seen as good fits for the Royals. Probably in part due to that the Royals nationally are seen as that team that desperately need offense and have a good rotation and a good bullpen. Whereas a lot of people that follow the Royals would say that they need another swing starter. They need somebody that can help them out to be the number 5 or be the number 6 if Kyle Wright can't stay healthy, if Alec Marsh can't get ready in time. They need Cole Reagan's back desperately, and then we can start worrying about, well, let's just focus on the offense and not worry about bringing in another arm to help this rotation. Ryan McMahon, who's been brought up by a few of the commenters out here, he's listed as number 16 on this list, but only a 60% chance of being traded. The Royals were not seen as a fit there. Another name and a few outfielders that were brought up that I was honestly shocked weren't seen as good fits. Luis Robert was not seen as a fit for the Royals, a 90% chance of being traded there. Taylor Ward, surprisingly only 45% here, but he is listed as one of the fits for the Royals. San Diego, Philadelphia, Cleveland, Seattle, San Francisco, and the Royals. So you see a common theme here. When the Royals are a fit, it's also San Diego and Cleveland and San Francisco, teams that need corner outfield help desperately. But Ward is seen as the 20th best trade chip, but he's only got a 45% chance of being dealt there. Nolan Arenado, I know there was some smoke in the offseason, not seen as a fit there. Another outfielder, Adolis Garcia, 80% chance of being traded, actually, which did surprise me a bit. He's had a down year, but he's also the 17th most unlucky hitter in the big leagues this year. Royals not seen as a fit there. And it only goes through the first 30 here, and then they've got 31 through 50. They don't give the best fits here, but Jesus Sanchez was the 37th ranked trade prospect here. You also have, what was the other outfielder I was looking for here? Actually, I believe that's the only other outfielder, 31 through 50. There's a lot of pitchers there, none from the Royals. No offensive player was seen as a trade chip. Yoan Moncada, I know a couple people really like him and what he can be when he's healthy. He's listed as the 47th best trade chip of these top 50. So it was a great article, great in-depth breakdown. A couple of those players that I named were the only ones that were listed as fits for the Royals, but that can always change. And as I've said before, I can't wait until we start getting some more smoke where the Royals are in discussions with some teams and we can kind of get more of a condensed group than, oh, that would make sense for the Royals. We'd love to see some news coming out soon of the Royals are actively trying to go after this certain player. Okay, we're going to take our final break of the show. When we come back, we're going to dive into this series with the Tampa Bay Rays. That's next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson. You can catch us on wherever you listen to your podcast. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off on your first year. That's monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB, LOCKEDONMLB, for half off on your first year. So get started today with Monarch Money. I absolutely love it. I lose track of where my subscriptions are all the time. So if you're like me, always want to make sure you've got tabs on everything and you're not losing money to stuff that you are no longer using. So the Royals begin a 3-game series with the Tampa Bay Rays tonight. As we talked about in that first segment, a team that I'm a believer in now. Maybe that's, being a little bit unfair because I am just buying in what the Rays have done over the last 30 games. There's always a possibility that 22-8 stretch they've had is the best they are all season long, and they start to regress back to where they were in April and May. Because when the Royals saw them in Tampa, they swept them. I mean, they were all competitive games for the most part. You had Noah Cameron making his big league debut. He no-hit them into the 7th inning. Then you have back-to-back nights where it was a close game, a good pitcher's duel. The Royals won game 2. And then on Sunday, or I think it was actually Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. Might have been a Wednesday or Thursday. It was a getaway day. That's all I know. They dominated them. Shane Baz was on the mound, and the Royals just torched the ace at the time of the Tampa Bay Rays. But it's the same 3 pitchers that they saw in that series back in April or May. And, I've kept saying that, so I want to make sure I get the exact date here. I want to say it was April, but it very well could have been May. These series sometimes just blend together for me. So it was in April. It was the very end of April and into May. So that's why it blended together. I said April or May. There were 2 games in April, and there was 1 game in May. The Royals won 3-1, 3-0, and then 8-2. So they really just stifled that Rays offense. And Chandler Simpson, who was not the talk of baseball, but one of the top stories, they held him to 1 hit, and it was an infield single to the pitcher. He's now back up with Tampa Bay, so they're going to have to worry about that speed once again. But it's a good series matchup for the Royals, in my opinion, based on who's throwing. So game one tonight, first pitch 6:40. Taj Bradley will be on the mound for the Rays. He's been really, really bad this month. ERA over 7. He's got one of the highest qualified ERAs among starters. And then you've got Chris Bubich going for Kansas City, who hasn't really been the same Chris Bubich in the last two outings against the Yankees and then against the Rangers. Against the Rangers, it ended up being fine because the Royals won that game. Against the Yankees, they were out of it by the second inning. But Taj Bradley, 4-5 with a 4.95 ERA, 73 strikeouts this year in 80 innings, a whip right around league average, slightly above it. But you go to his last start, which was just 6 days ago against Baltimore, was one of the worst starts of the year for him. Went only an inning and a third, gave up 6 earned runs on 6 hits, struck out just 2, and walked 1. But that was coming off an outing in which he went 4 innings. They were shutout innings, struck out 5 and walked 4. But he gave up 7 earned runs against Miami in 4 innings the start before that. So that's his previous 3, 6 and 1 and a third against Baltimore, 4 shutout against the Mets, and then 7 earned runs in 4 innings against the Marlins. What's odd about this, too, with Taj Bradley's lines this year, Miami was a team that gave him all kinds of trouble. So you had that 7 earned runs in 4 innings the last time he faced him, and that was at home. He also saw Miami back on May 16th, and he gave up 5 earned runs in 4 innings. I'm trying to think now in that Padres series, maybe it was the Rangers series. Yeah, it was the Rangers series. Patrick Corbin didn't work that deep into the game. Taj Bradley doesn't work that deep into the game either, and hasn't for quite some time. He did throw 7 shutout innings against the Astros back on June 1st. That was really the only good start he's had this month, unless you want to count the 4 shutout innings with 4 walks against the Mets back on June 13th. But he's gone an inning and a third, 4 innings, 4 innings, 7 innings, 7 innings, 6 innings, 4 innings, 5 and a third. But it's been a long time since he's been able to consistently get 6 innings each and every start. You go back from March to about May 10th, he threw at least 5 innings in every one of those starts to begin the season. Now in his last 5 to 6 starts, he's gone 4 innings or less in 4 of them. So of late, he started to struggle a little bit more, and that could be a good sign for the Royals with Chris Bubich on the bump. As for some guys with good numbers off of him, Drew Waters, only 2 at-bats. Believe those came earlier this year. He's hitting 500, OPSing 1.167. Bobby Witt Jr. was 0 for 4 against him in that series. Salvador Perez, 1 for 5. Freddie Fermin, 2 for 5. But a lot of guys just don't have enough numbers off of him. As for the Rays against Chris Bubich, Yandy Diaz has stupid numbers against him, hitting 800 with an OPS over 2,600 against Bubich in his career. As for everybody else, nobody has more than 5 at-bats, and that's Danny Jansen, who is 0 for 5. Game 2 of this series, as I said, that I will be out for at Kauffman Stadium. This will be Michael Wacha going up against Drew Rasmussen. Rasmussen has excellent numbers this year. He's 6-5 with a 2.61 ERA and sub-1 whip. He's been phenomenal. In the last 7 starts, a 1.83 ERA, his whip below 0.9 in those last 7 starts. And here's his last 3. He went 5 1/3 against the Orioles, gave up just 2 earned runs. He went 5 innings against the Mets, gave up 4 earned runs, and then had a quality start against the Marlins, 6 innings of 2 earned runs there. Doesn't really get the strikeout numbers. He does have 67 on the year and 79 in the 3rd innings. He pitches to a lot of contact. Last couple times out, hasn't worked that deep into the game, but he's been very, very efficient. He's been able to limit a lot of base runners, 32 strikeouts in his last 7 starts. That ranges 39 in a 3rd inning. So maybe a little bit more than he's used to in terms of getting the strikeout totals, but he's been very efficient. And the Royals do have some history off of him that goes back just earlier this year at the end of April. And in that start against Kansas City, he went 5 innings and gave up 3 earned runs on 6 hits. He struck out just 3 and walked 1. As for Michael Wacha, 4-6 with a 3.24 ERA. Really doesn't get much strikeouts anymore. 65 Ks and 86 innings pitched. Whip that is below league average. And in his last 7 starts, pretty much what he's done all season long, 3.54 ERA. He's coming off that quality start in Texas, which was good to see considering the last 2 starts he had against the Athletics and the White Sox just wasn't as sharp with his command. So Wacha, who has been, in my opinion, very good at home this year. At least it seems like it. I believe his numbers have been better at home this year. He's going to get the ball in game 2 against Drew Rasmussen, first pitch at 6:40. Then you've got the Thursday afternoon game, Shane Baz, who got lit up by the Royals when they squared off at George M. Steinbrenner Field. He's 7-3 with a 4.79 ERA. And Michael Lorenzen, who has bounced back a little bit in his last 3 starts. He went 6 innings, a 2-run ball against the White Sox, and then he had another quality start, 6 innings, a 3-run ball against the Athletics, and then I thought was pretty impressive against San Diego on Friday night. 5 1/3, only 2 earned runs. He struck out 4, but did walk 3. As for Shane Baz, who in the Royals saw him, was absolutely seen as the ace of that staff. It just hasn't been the same type of year for him. Not that the numbers have been terrible over his last 3 starts. He did give up 5 against Detroit, but had 6 2/3 shutout innings against the Mets, and he also only gave up 3 and 5 1/3 against the Boston Red Sox. But in that start against Kansas City, he went only 5 2/3 and gave up 7 earned runs, and that was in a stretch where he gave up 7 to Kansas City, then 6 to Philadelphia, 3 to Toronto, and then 5 to Miami. But he has, been able to revert back to what he's been doing for the majority of his Rays career. He's had a couple of good outings against some good offenses, but last time out against Detroit did give up 5, and that was the first time he gave up more than 3 runs in a start since May 18th. Still not great numbers, but that really rough stretch in the middle of May, the beginning to middle of May, is when Shane Baz's numbers really shot up. But we'll see if we'll get the good version of Baz on Thursday, or if it's going to be the same version that they saw when the Royals and Rays squared off at George M. Steinbrenner Field at the very beginning of May. Well, that's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I have been your host, Jack Johnson. Thank you for making Locked On Royals your first listen today. For your second, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale and find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Tomorrow, we're going to have a breakdown of what happened in tonight's game, and we're also going to look ahead to a game that I'll be in attendance for on Wednesday night, which will have Michael Wacha on the bump going up against Drew Rasmussen. But until tomorrow, you take it easy, Kansas City.